One single video game where every single nostalgic property is all rolled into one? I find that hard to believe. Although, speaking of video games, I really can't wait for the new Smash Bros. Game, where I'm going to get to play as Mario, Sonic, Pac-Man, Mega Man, Cloud, Ryu, and Bayonetta all over again. But for the time being, I'll just have to settle with Injustice 2, where I can have Batman team up with the Ninja Turtles to fight Hellboy and Sub-Zero. But when it comes to crossover movies, I'll stick to Avengers Infinity War, thank you very much. Although, with Disney now buying Fox, that means that in a couple of years, we could actually get a crossover movie with the Avengers teaming up with the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and Star Wars characters and Mickey Mouse and the Xenomorphs and the Simpsons. But one single game where a Gundam can team up with the Iron Giant? I find that hard to believe. Ready Player One is the brand new Spielberg film that's based on the popular book that I haven't read. I've been busy! But it's set in a future where everyone is addicted to a game called The Oasis. Basically a cyber paradise where you can escape all the problems of your life, and boy are there a lot of problems. Pollution and overpopulation have led people to basically just living in cubes stacked on top of each other. But in the Oasis, you can be whoever you want to be and indulge in your wildest fantasies. Problem is, the creator of the game died 5 years ago, and he said that whoever can find his 3 keys that he hid in the almost infinite landscape of the Oasis would gain ownership of the company and thereby the Oasis itself. Now this follows Wade Watts, or Parzival as he's known in the game, who was a huge fan of the creator of the Oasis, James Halliday, and using his knowledge of the creator, he's actually able to start collecting these keys. But he has to find them all before Nolan Sorrento, the head of the evil IOI Corporation, can find them himself and decide to shut the Oasis down for good. Now normally with these reviews I start by addressing the positives and then I go into the negatives, but I feel like for this review I need to flip that, because so many people were hesitant going into this movie that I feel like I need to start by addressing the big concern that everyone had, which is they were worried that this film was going to be nothing but, oh hey, it's that thing you know. Isn't that cool? Because that's kind of what the book was. Almost every single location and character and puzzle and prop in that movie was a reference to something from the 80s, and for years people even said that that book was unfilmable because of how many properties you would have to get the rights to. However, about 50% of this movie is actually a really touching film about geek culture and what it means to be a geek and how it brings people together, and it's loaded with heart and charm, which is what Spielberg does. However, yeah, the other 50% of this film is just, hey, it's that thing you know. Yes, I have eyes, I saw it, I get the reference. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the pop culture references are bad. As I said, this is a celebration of geek culture, and geek culture is basically just being proud of that thing that you're passionate about, and there are moments in this movie when they make references and you feel that passion. This is made by Spielberg after all, and Spielberg is a huge geek himself. And anytime that this movie pays tribute to stuff from the 80s like Back to the Future, or his own creations like the Iron Giant, yeah, you can feel that passion. Or the second puzzle that they have to solve for the key is one long tribute to a film that Spielberg is a huge fan of. I won't spoil it, but it's quite possibly the highlight of the movie. It's a long sequence just going through this movie and playing around with it, and it's exactly what this movie's pop culture references should be. It celebrates it and is dripping with love and passion that will be a treat to other fans of the property. However, this leads me to what will probably be the most unpopular opinion of this review. I kind of feel like Spielberg should have had a co-director on this. Because yes, when it's talking about something he's a fan of, it's awesome. You can tell he put his heart and soul into those moments. But when it's dealing with stuff that he doesn't know anything about, when it's dealing with modern pop culture references, especially anything video game related, yeah, he kind of just said, I don't know, just throw it up there. Because yes, there's a handful of great pop culture references here, but the other 95% of them are just, hey, check out that character really tiny shooting at something else really tiny in the background. And what makes that a real shame is this feels like there were a ton of opportunities for great references that kind of got wasted. Now granted, it could have been a money thing. It could have been the studio saying, hey, we spent all this money to get this character. for half a second. So that's all you got. And with that much time, yeah, there isn't really a whole lot you can do with them. So I'm not going to place all the blame on Spielberg on this one because I don't know what was going on with the wheelings and dealings of every single one of these characters behind the scenes. But yeah, it still kind of feels like there's some missed opportunities in here. I mean, this is a movie where you got the rights to both Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. You're not gonna give me at least one shot of Ryu and Scorpion fighting off the bad guys back to back? This is a movie where you got Chucky, Jason Voorhees, the Xenomorph, and all these other horror icons. You're not gonna, I don't know, give me a shot of all of them rolling into battle together? This is a movie where you got Tracer from Overwatch showing up leading a cavalry. Tracer from Overwatch arrives with the cavalry. Don't you think maybe there was a line she could have said in this film that would have been appropriate for that scene? I'm just saying. Even the people who don't play Overwatch know what I'm saying. However, the pop culture references aren't what this movie is about. That's just the sign outside the building to get you to come inside. But once you get inside, you'll find that this is a film with lots of heart about celebrating the connection we have to the people who inspire us. I might have said that Spielberg needed a co-director just to plan out the scenes with characters he didn't know anything about, but when it comes to the actual story, yeah, leave that to Spielberg because this is what he does and he does it well. This is a movie about this guy who has no connections and no life in the real world, finding friends and love with other people in the Oasis, most of which starts by them forming a connection based around their love of pop culture, which is something that many of us in the modern day and age actually can relate to. We've all probably had an experience like that, and this movie doesn't treat that like it's sad. Like, why don't you actually go out there and go into the real world? This is lame. Yes, there is a message in here about the importance of the real world, and honestly, it kind of feels a little tacked on towards the end. But for the most part, this movie celebrates how we now use technology and pop culture to bond, and that's actually pretty progressive of this film. Not many movies are willing to do that. However, speaking of the themes of coming together and forming bonds, that's another area where this movie both succeeds and fails at the same time, because Wade Watts has a friend in the game called H, and he has a love interest called Artemis. And for the most part, yeah, you can pretty much buy them coming together, and when they're rolling into battle and fighting off the bad guys, it feels pretty darn good. However, they have two other friends who are barely mentioned at all and barely seen in the first half of this film. Then in the second half of this film, they're just there, and they're just part of the crew, ready to roll into battle with them, and it's kind of like, yeah, alright, we're all together. Did we actually know each other at all? We did? Alright, if you say so. Yay, we're all together! And that's not the only thing that they kind of skim over in this movie. When it comes to establishing the tone of this world, they do a great job. It feels like an 80s film, which is what this is meant to be a tribute to. But when it comes to establishing the rules of this world, I have some questions, and not just for the rules of the game, but the rules of the real world as well. For example, this big evil corporation can purchase all your debt in the game and then force you into slave labor. Okay, I know this is a dystopian future, but that's a tad too dystopian for me to believe. How is any of that legal? Or there is an item in the game that they introduce that they say anyone can buy, and when activated, it will destroy everyone in the game, sending every single user across the planet back to square one, making them lose all the loot and progress they've spent years trying to build up. Why would you put something like that in your game? That makes zero sense to me. I mean, I love Overwatch. I am addicted to that game, have been ever since it came out. But if you suddenly told me that there was an item in that game that anyone could buy, and if they activated it, it would cause me and every single other player to lose all the skins and emotes that we spent 2 years trying to build up, I would never touch that game again. But back to the positives, and what's probably the biggest positive of this film, it's also a movie about celebrating the creators who influence your life. The people who invented the things that changed who you are. And honestly, if you have someone like that who had a huge influence on you, yeah, this movie is going to hit you hard towards the end. There were people in my theater crying at the end of this movie, and I honestly can't blame them, because whether it be Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Satoru Iwata, Hideo Kojima, heck, even Spielberg himself, if you had someone like that whose works meant something to you, this movie will make you feel something powerful at the end. But there's one other thing about this film that works incredibly well, and the amazing thing about this is I don't even think this film meant for this message to be in here. This film is all about some big faceless corporation that is trying to strip the Oasis down for parts. Is trying to take this thing that everyone loves and just load it with ads and remove all the life and charm and heart out of it. And if you have something that you are very passionate about, you've probably had that fear that that could happen to it. I mean, Star Wars fans? EA and loot boxes. That's all I'll say. But maybe it's just me. But I couldn't help this. While I was watching this film about this big, faceless corporation trying to take the #1 tool in the world for communicating and bonding with other people and trying to just destroy it, I couldn't help but think about the FCC getting rid of net neutrality. And yeah, when I thought about like that, and I saw all these geeks in this movie rising up to take them down, it felt really damn good. Again, I don't know if they even meant for that message to be in this film, but yeah, it's in this film and it kind of works. So in the end, this is a movie that, yes, half of it is just, hey, it's that thing, and that's just kind of, meh, okay, I guess it's neat. But the other half of this movie is really, truly great references that do have passion behind them. A story about how games and the internet and pop culture do bring us all together. A story about celebrating your heroes and everything they've given you. And a movie about friends. Basically, imagine the part that is a classic fun Spielberg film is a really great donut. And all the pop culture references are sprinkles. Yeah, it's loaded with way too many of them, and it's going to be kind of hard to crunch through them all, but once you're actually able to bite through that mountain of sugar, yeah, there's something actually really good in here. And honestly, the best thing I can say about this movie is that it's 2.5 hours long, and when I saw that, I was dreading it. But not only was it not a drain, it actually soared by. This does not feel like 2.5 hours long. I saw Pacific Rim Uprising last week, and it's half an hour shorter than this, and yet this film felt so much quicker because it has great pacing and every scene is actually lots of fun. So the best thing I can say about this movie is that I went in dreading it and I came out kind of wanting to see it again. But it still has problems, and because of that, I'll balance it all out to a 7 out of 10. But it's a really fun 7 out of 10. This is just one big roller coaster, and if you think you might enjoy it, then by all means, take the ride. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you want to see our spoiler talk on this, it's popping up right over there, so go ahead and give it a click. And if you enjoyed Ready Player One and you like all things from the world of pop culture, then check out everything else on this channel, because we also have a comic book show every single Wednesday, and we also do video game reviews on the weekend as well. And if you want to follow us anywhere else on the web, you can always check us out on Twitter and Twitch at Professor Thorgi. Thanks again for watching, everyone. Come back next time.